Well, let's bring Scott Grayson. He was there yesterday, and just initially, Scott, reaction in the locker room. I mean, somber. They won the NFC Championship, NFC East Championship. So was it celebratory or more somber?
It was really weird because you could see that the players, in a way, were trying to enjoy the NFC East Championship hats that they had on, knowing that they'd clinched that, but at the same time worried about, who is the number one leader on this team, Carson Wentz. And they, everybody was saying the right things. We don't know yet. We're waiting to hear ultimately what it is. But reading body language, these guys have all seen guys suffer torn ACLs before. They've seen guys see their seasons come to an end. And these players know it. Look, when Carson walked off the field with that towel over his head, it sent the body language that he believed he was he was done for a long time. And then the way the guys came out of the locker room and the way they were talking, they tried to remain optimistic, but the belief in my mind was there that these guys were thinking it will be pleasantly surprised if it's not a torn ACL, and ultimately that's what it ended up being. So, but I will say this, I didn't believe it as lip service. I think they are very confident in Nick Foles, and they understand that the rest of them have to elevate their game to compensate a little bit for some of the things that Carson did. So, we'll see. Look, they've suffered some huge injuries. I mean, who'd have thought they lose Sproles, Peters, Marigos, Jordan Hicks, and they're still in the mix to get a first-round bye. Now they lose Carson Wentz. But a win this week could get them that first-round bye and lock it up. And then you only need to win 2 games to get to the Super Bowl, so we'll see. But I think these guys believe in Foles, and you could tell with the body language that they were worried that this was ultimately going to be the case.
Scotty, you wrote about the players' belief in Foles. You talked to a lot of guys after the game. Just them very commenting on it kind of indicated they thought that's what direction it was going to go, right? I mean, so at that time, what was the sentiment about moving forward?
I think a lot of it is that they know Nick Foles is capable. And I even tweeted about that in the fourth quarter. I mean, everybody was blowing up on Twitter about season's over, all this. And it was, look, this guy's good enough to manage the game. And don't forget, he did go 27-2. Yes, was that an outlier? 27 touchdowns, 2 interceptions back in 2013? Yeah, perhaps. But I know everybody remembers the train coming off the tracks here. But, Chris Long mentioned how much, Nick Foles has done in practice to show them that he's got the ability to do this. And he's convinced these guys. It was more than one player. It was every guy I talked to said, we've seen him do it in practice. We know he knows this offense. He's going to get more reps now. So, the belief is there. And the other thing is that the whole next man up mentality along with it, when you combine the two things, the belief in Foles and the idea that they've already overcome all these other injuries with other guys on the roster, why can't Nick Foles do that as well? I mean, this team still believes that they can accomplish something special, and that's not lip service. They believe every bit of that.
Scott Grayson, Grayson's grades are posted at 97.3ESPN.com. Check out all of the grades. Let's pick out a couple guys that are going to stand out now with Carson Wentz out. Jay Ajayi, you gave him an A, but will he need to be an A+ for them to make a deep run?
Well, is Doug Peterson going to give him the chance? I mean, that was one of the I know we'll talk about Doug, but I thought Ajayi was running very well yesterday. To me, he had some extra gear that he hasn't had since he came over to the Eagles. He was making cuts in the hole to allow him to spring for more yardage. He was also looked like he hit the holes a little faster than he had been the previous week. So I really suspect whether or not he was a little banged up when he got here, and now he's getting healthy. But I wondered why, when he was doing well and LeGarrette Blount clearly wasn't, again, they get into this rotation, and it's like they can't get them out of their own way sometimes, when they have to figure out who's going to run the ball. And Ajayi was doing really well yesterday. I thought he should have had more carries, would have had over 100 yards, got 78 yards as it was, 5.2 yards per carry, a positive sign, and they're going to need to rely on the running game a lot more to try to alleviate some of the pressure on Foles.
Alshon Jeffrey, another guy you gave an A to, Scott Grayson, and obviously Alshon Jeffrey with that unbelievable catch on Wentz's, what turns out to be his last touchdown pass of the season.
Which, by the way, broke a record, single-season record.
Yeah, and 33 touchdowns for Wentz. It's a shame, man. But he did that with a torn ACL, which is even more amazing to the legend that will be Carson Wentz here. But Alshon Jeffrey, 5 receptions, 52 yards. That one touchdown, they don't win the game without it. So you credit Wentz, you credit Jeffrey. I mean, the replay, I don't know how he caught that ball. I really don't. And he was, very excited about that touchdown for good reason, Jeffrey, as well. I mean, look, he knows he signed the contract extension here. He knows he's got to produce a little more, and he did there. And I thought he made bigger catches as well throughout the game. I mean, none bigger than that one, but he was, hauling the ball in along the sidelines on third down. He was helping move the chains. He was getting open, and he said after the game, I left some plays out there. So, this is a guy who's motivated now to even elevate his game a little more to try to help Foles.
Early in the game, I think I saw a tweet from someone else that said, stop throwing the ball to Torrey Smith. And then every time he caught a ball, I tweeted back at the person and said, do you still want to stop throwing to Torrey Smith? What grade did you give him?
I gave him an A, and here's my biggest gripe, though, with Smith. He's inconsistent. He could come out next week against the Giants and lay an egg. He's capable of doing that. We've seen it this season. But he's also capable of doing what he did yesterday, which was in big moments made some big catches in traffic. He also, the one pass that really sticks in my mind is where the defender peeled off of him and Smith kept going on a ball that Wentz floated to him. He ended up being wide open as a result, and it was a huge play at the time to really help spring the ball down the field for the Eagles at a time where they needed to score. And I thought Smith had a really good game. He still shows he's got the ability. There are times people doubt him, and they say, what's going on? But I think that's because he's inconsistent. And if he can get consistent here at the end of the season, it's not too late for him here to get consistent. If he can do that over these next few weeks, they need to develop that so they have some more reliable, weapons for Foles. He's going to need them.
How about the defense, which has been struggling the last couple of weeks? They struggled yesterday. And the one thing that's been disappointing to me has been the tackling. They didn't tackle well against Seattle, and they didn't tackle Gurley well yesterday. So Jim Schwartz represents the defense. You gave him a C.
I gave him a C because I thought that while he did have guys in position to make tackles, I felt like what's going on with all the missed tackles lately, and I got to believe it's partly, I singled out Schwartz, but I also mentioned in the flush out there that goes with it in the article that, his staff as well, the form tackling is off. I mean, these guys are trying to make too many arm tackles. The one to Cooper Kupp along the sideline, 2 guys missed tackles on that play. Malcolm Jenkins, one of them, he missed multiple tackles in the game. I gave him a D, and I just think he said after the game, too, he said, look, Todd Gurley's the best back we faced this season. And if they're not careful, they're going to end up playing him again in the playoffs, and they got to be ready to make those tackles. They did it when they really needed to in the fourth quarter, wrapping them up behind the line of scrimmage at key times. But for the first 3 quarters, it wasn't there. And they've got to do a much better job with tackling. I pin that on Schwartz and his staff, as well as the guys who then tried to make the arm tackles. They got to know better.
Let's close out with the area that might be the most concerning moving forward is the left guard or the left side of the line. You went left guard, which was a turnstile yesterday, but the entire left side of the line got a D.
Yeah, and I thought Big V at least bounced back more positively than I was afraid of after what happened in Seattle. So I really singled out the guys who took over for Wisniewski, and I think we saw some of the value he has on that line. Chance Warmack got a shot. His shot was short-lived because then they brought in Sayamalu. Sayamalu didn't do much better, but I think they thought he did better than Warmack, so they were going to ride that the rest of the way. Look, these guys have to figure that out. Again, they're going to have to establish the running game even more so than they have in the past because, as Malcolm Jenkins said, there's things Carson can do that Nick Foles can't. And that's not a knock on Foles, but they just said he's not as mobile, and that's obvious. So they're going to have to block better. They're going to have to establish a run.
Yeah.
So this defense isn't coming all at them.
Hey,
and that left guard spot is going to be key.
Real quick, Scott, you covered Foles a bunch. What are some of the things he does do well that make you think that this team is still a legitimate Super Bowl team?
I think he's got the intelligence to read the defense. Now, does he have the kind of intelligence that Wentz has already shown? I don't know that yet, but he has the arm when he's healthy. And remember in the preseason, he was limited on his throwing a lot because his arm was sore for weeks throughout training camp. It's ramped back up. It seems like he's good. The guys like what they've seen out of him. Malcolm Jenkins pointed at the throw that he threw to Nelson Aguilar in the fourth quarter to move the chains under 2 minutes to go. That was a huge throw thrown right where it needed to be. And he said he's capable of making all the throws, and he is. I think what we saw when the wheels came off the wagon here, he just didn't have it going in Chip Kelly's offense there that one year. He also didn't have, quite as many weapons. This is a much better offense, and he's got weapons around him. I think we're going to see a better Nick Foles. I really do. Is he going to be Carson Wentz? No. But can he be good enough to manage a game and let this team still win games? I think he is.
Hey, there was a time, and thanks, of course, Scott Grayson, who was in Seattle. He was in L.A. on his way back. He'll be in New York for the Eagles and Giants this weekend. Check out Grayson's grades at 97.3ESPN.com. All right, Scott, appreciate it, pal.
All right, you got it. Thanks, Mike.